Hare Krishna. Omajnanatimandasya Jananasnakam Sakshvamitam Yena Tasmai Shigurve Namah Chichaitanyamanogistam Staptam Yena Bhutalishvam Rapakadamyam Dadati Svapalantikam Vandeham Shio Shiyuda Padkamam Shiram Vaishnavam Sham Shirupam Jagajatam Sakanaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savdutam Parjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sakalita Shivishakam Vitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhudina Pati Gopesha Koprakamta Radhakamta Namastate Tapta Kanchna Gauraki Radhe Vrindavanashva Vishabhana Sutadevi Panamama Haripriye Vankakalpta Vishakri Pasinda Abhiyai Visham Padman Pavanabhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavada Paskachaya Dasatayani. Hare Krishna, today we will continue discussing chapter 17 until the end. First, we will hear about sacrifices and austerities in the modes. After that, we will hear about charity in the three modes. And the chapter concludes that all these activities, sacrifices, austerities, charity, they should be done with faith in the Supreme, Om Tat Sat. Otherwise, they are useless. That they are useless in this life and in the next. So that is a summary of what we will discuss in the first section of today's class. So we start with text 11. Text 11 is on the screen. Afalang kankshibir chakyo viditistoya ichate yastavyam iviti mana samadaya sasatvika. Of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed according to the directions of scriptures as a matter of duty by those who desire no reward is of the nature of goodness. So usually people do sacrifices, jagyas, to get some benefit, some profit for themselves. But yes, it should be performed factually without such desire. It should be done as a matter of duty. That brings one to the mode of goodness. That so one goes to the temple, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purpose, just to offer respect to the deities. So it is the duty of every civilized man to obey to the injunctions of the scriptures and of respect to the Supreme Personality of God. But of course, most people perform sacrifice for material profit. And that's in the mode of passion, Krishna says. Api sandaya tu phalam dam bhaktam apachefayat iyate paratashasta tam chahyam vidirachasam. They do it for material benefit, but the sacrifice performed for some material benefit or for the sake of pride or chival bharat, you should not be in the mode of passion. So, yes, and some they want elevation to heavenly planets. It's a material benefit. So that we know, we have heard before in the 14th chapter, only in the mode of goodness can one see things as they are. Mode of passion and ignorance means attachment and aversion and identification with the body. And that's very dangerous. Text 13. Vidinam ashishtanam mantrainam adakshinam shradam virahitam chahyam tamasam parisakshate. So this is verse. Any sacrifice performed without regard for the directions of the scriptures, without distribution of prasadam, spiritual food, or without chanting of Vedic hymns and remunerations to the priests, and without faith, is considered to be in the mode of ignorance. So without faith, Srila Prabhupada says, faith in the mode of darkness is actually having no faith. So that's performed in the mode of tamas, ignorance. And what does it produce? A demonic mentality, and it will not benefit human society, rather harm it. Good. This is about sacrifices, and now austerities. We will hear about austerity of the body, or austerity of speech, austerity of the mind. That three kinds of austerities. And we can learn a lot also as devotees performing these three kinds of austerities. First is austerity of the body. Devatvyagro prahya puchanam sauchamaryavam brahmacharyam aimsam sariram tapauchate. Austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmins, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. So, worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmins, and the spiritual master. So, every morning we do in the temple Go Puja. Should do that at home also. That's worship of the spiritual master. So these should be given proper respect. One should practice cleansing oneself externally and internally, and he should learn to become simple in behavior. Sex is sanctioned in the scriptures only in marriage, not otherwise. That is called celibacy. These are penances and austerities as far as the body is concerned. Srila Prabhupada says, worship of the superiors like father, mother, that I've seen that in India, coming from the airplane, and the mother is on the airplane, and is greeted by our sons when they touch their feet, that out of respect. So respect for elders and for parents, very important. This is dwindling today, that respect. Yeah. So, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence, that austerity of the body, cleanliness, that we learn how to do puja, that before you touch anything, your hands should be clean. Before we eat, our hands should be clean. Simplicity. Yeah. Learn to become simple in behavior. Srila Prabhupada said, straightforward, simple. Celibacy is no sex life unless the marriage for the procreation of children. And non-violence. We don't kill even an ant unnecessarily. So these are the austerities of the body. That now, austerity of speech. 15. Anut vihakaram pakyam satyam priyaitam sayat svatyaya abhyasnam seva vanmaram tapa uchate. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly citing Vedic literature. That so, yeah, like you find in the Bhagavatam that, yeah, when Vidura was visiting Dhritarashtra, he knew already that Krishna left the planet, but he did not tell it to the Pandavas. So it's not necessary to be the bearer of bad news to people. That if we hear something, what happened, some bad thing that happened, we don't have to inform everyone. They will get to know it somewhere or another soon. But we should not be the bearer of bad news. Speaking truthful, pleasing, and beneficial. Beneficial. Not being truthful and pleasing. Not always easy. That sometimes the truth is not palatable. But we must be careful not to agitate others. That austerity of speech, regularly reciting Vedic literature. That's a very good practice. Reciting verses, reading from the scriptures every day. That's very good. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, one should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. So, of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of the student, but such a teacher should not speak to those who are not his students, if he will agitate their minds. An important instruction that about reciting the scriptures, Srila Prabhupada writes, one should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. So that's an important point. If you analyze Srila Prabhupada's lecture, you will find that he quotes 40, 50 verses in each lecture. And sometimes he's paraphrasing verses without referring to them. So it should be backed up by authority. Yes, Mother Rukmini, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I want to ask that if someone asks for advice, then can we give like I have 4 friends who ask me few things all the time. So if they ask, can I help them with the advice?
Well, that depends on the situation. That you can help them with advice, but first, where's your motivation? What's the purpose of helping them? Is it to help them to advance in spiritual life?
Yes, Maharaj.
So that's the first question. The second question is, are they students on a lower level, or are they friends?
Friends equal.
Equal, yeah. Yeah, we can speak as friends that giving advice we can do if they are asking us for advice. Because otherwise it looks a bit strange between friends. Because Krishna also asked advice from Uddhav because he was his friend. But then, of course, that there's also the point that will it agitate their minds? You have to advise them in such a way that you do not agitate their minds. It requires an experience and if your advice is according to scriptural authority, and you don't agitate them or not too much, then yeah, would be okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, it's like we are performing spiritual life, but still we have so many material things like family, this and that, children, husband, household things. So they ask for these things, but of course, if they are not well, they are not able to perform their spirituality nicely. So they ask this. So is it okay to give advice, na Maharaj?
It's okay if your advice is done from the spiritual perspective.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes.
Then it's okay. That because you want them to advance spiritually.
Yes, Maharaj.
You refer to the scriptures. Yeah, in the Bhagavatam we find so much advice from sages and from Krishna, also about family life and all these things. It's good if you are well versed, then that will be helpful in doing that.
Maharaj, by doing so, their minds are relaxed and they can perform spirituality. A related question is that they follow or not. They don't follow all the time, but they ask always. These are the things. So I have heard in one lecture that we should not give advice if someone did not ask, because that then you will go to hell. And if somebody asks you for advice and if they don't follow, they will go to hell. I heard in two weeks back, Her Grace Devi Shakti Mataji said this.
Krishna says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, we will hear that in the 18th chapter, that there he will say that This confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. So you don't give advice to those who do not want to be instructed by you. That's going wrong.
Yes, Maharaj, yes. They ask them even.
Yeah. You have also the 10 offenses against the holy name. The 9th offense is to instruct people about the holy name and this person are faithless. That's also an offense against the holy name. So never instruct those who do not be instructed, who do not want to be instructed by you, and give never advice to those who are senior to you. That's inappropriate. That we should always consider these points, because Krishna does not want us to do that. He says in Bhagavad Gita that that is something to be avoided. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you so very much, Maharaj.
Okay, let's now go to point 16, the austerities of the mind, and that's quite an important verse, I would say, also for us who want to advance in devotional service. Mana prasada samyatvam maunamatma vinisha bhava samsutirityetat tapomanasam uchate. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities in the mind, of the mind. So these are a lot of points. Satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence. So this is very important, these instructions, because we have the entire 6th chapter, which explains us how to control the mind practically, how to fix the mind on Krishna. That and here you have a lot of additional advice. That so the austerity of the mind is factually to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. And fixed in Krishna consciousness and think of the welfare of others. That will lead to satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence. So these are effects of Krishna, of practicing Krishna consciousness. And these are the austerities of the mind. Now that to make the mind austere, one must be detached from sense gratification. So we should be detached from sense gratification. Therefore, yeah, it's good to fast on Ekadashi, to become a little more austere, and that to give up that attachment. That and also your mind should be trained in such a way to think always of the good of others. Like Prahlad Maharaj in the 5th canto, you have the prayers of the residents of Jambudvip, that there that Prahlad Maharaj prays, let all people of the law of the world become non-envious, and think of each other's welfare by engaging in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So Prahlad was always thinking of the welfare of all others. So one should not deviate from Krishna consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. So we have to eat and sleep and so on, but just what's needed to keep the body healthy and balanced, fit for devotional service. And austerity of the mind is purification of one's, is purify one's nature in Krishna conscious activities. So that means the mind must think of Krishna. You must hear about Krishna and absorb the mind in that hearing. That absorb the mind in Krishna and thinking of Krishna somewhere or another. So satisfaction of the mind. Real satisfaction of the mind comes when the mind is absorbed in Krishna. But it means also satisfaction of the mind. I've been put in a certain situation by my previous karma and get a certain amount of happiness and distress. That's predestined. And the devotee accepts that. Thank you, Krishna, for giving me this situation. I deserve it. It's the reaction of my previous life. It's really what I deserve. Thank you. And I'm happy with it. I'm happy with my situation. And from your situation, whatever it is, you serve Krishna. So don't endeavor for mundane things that are difficult to obtain. Don't let your mind surfing on the internet trying to search something for your sense gratification. Be satisfied with what you have. So don't over-endeavor for mundane things and accept your satisfaction, and accept your situation, and that will help with feeling satisfied with the position Krishna gives you. And of course, when the mind is engaged in Krishna consciousness, that's a higher taste. Then one can let this sense enjoyment go. And because the more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. Then Srila Prabhupada says, and then silence. He speaks about silence. Silence, he says, means that one is always thinking of self-realization. That the person in Krishna consciousness observes perfect silence in this sense. Thus, he knows that we act as the self, we act as a spirit soul. That's devotional service. And that gives satisfaction, because this is our spiritual nature. That's what we want, to love and be loved. And that's attained in perfection in our relationship with Krishna, serving with Krishna with love. So control of the mind means detachment from sense enjoyment. That's control of the mind. And finally, one should be straightforward in his dealings and therefore purify his existence. Straightforward in his dealings But that's not going separate with the previous verse, not to agitate others if it's not necessary. So all these activities mentioned here, that simplicity, satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, purification of one's existence, that's austerity in mental activities. That, And then the Srila Prabhupada speaks about austerity in goodness, passion, and ignorance. That, well, Krishna mentioned now. Austerity in goodness, passion, and ignorance. Before we have heard austerities of the mind, on austerity of speech, and austerity of the body. So text 17. Shadaya paraya taptam tapas tatrividam narayin. Afalankang sivirayuktai satvikam parisakshate. This threefold austerity performed with transcendental faith by man, not expecting material benefits, but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called austerity in goodness. So that's the basis of our Krishna consciousness. We do everything for the pleasure of Krishna, nothing for ourselves. That is pure devotional service. If it's done with devotion for Krishna. Here it is set out of duty for the sake of the Supreme. It's more neutral that we do it out of duty, in our duty in the Varnashram, and Varnashram is meant for Aritoshanam. But it's not yet with devotion out of duty. But it's in the mode of goodness. Of course, there are also penances or austerities in the mode of passion. That's verse 18. Satkara manapujahtam tapodambena sevayat kriyate tatiha puktam rajasam chalam atruvam. Penances performed out of pride for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship is said to be in the mode of passion. It is neither stable nor permanent. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the first line of the purpose. Sometimes penance and austerity are executed to attract people and receive honor, respect, and worship from others. That's the mode of passion, to get respect and honor. So I'm a good person, see how austere I am. But worse than that is austerity in ignorance. Mudagainat jain atmanoyat pidaya kriyate tapa pasyut santanachtam va tam tamasamudaritam. Penance performed out of foolishness, with self-torture, or to destroy or injure others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, in the Prabhupada speaks about Hiranyakasipu, who was standing on his toes with his hands in the air, and while he was doing austerities, and he tortures his body and his senses. And what was the purpose? When Brahma came and said, what do you want? He said, I want to be immortal. That was his request. And that which was a foolish request because, yes, Brahma said, I'm also not immortal. So how can I give you immortality? That only Krishna consciousness is capable to give us this perfection of getting back our eternal life. So, Gaurav Prabhu, you have raised your hand.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, am I audible?
Yes, I'm hearing you well.
Okay. Maharaj, I was just asking about this austerity purpose perspective in the mode of ignorance. So here, Krishna is speaking about like if the austerity is performed with self-torture or destroy or injure others. Right? There is one is self-torture is one part. So in that respect, we find many stages also whose purpose of austerity is to get a supreme cause. It's not like a bad cause like Hiranyakashipu. But in that kind of case also, it seems like it is a self-torture. Just like Dhruv Maharaj, the way he was doing austerity, it was, in a way, it was not good for his health. In one manner, we can think about it, like he was not taking water. So his purpose was good. His purpose was to get Krishna. So is the austerity in the mode of ignorance is only defined by the purpose or also by the way it is getting executed?
But and only by the way of, what did you say?
Way, or by the way it is getting executed.
Okay, yeah. That here it says, yeah, self-torture or to destroy or injure others. That so that's the mode of ignorance. So these are two different motives: self-torture or destroy or injure others. That yeah. Dhruva Maharaj, like I give you an example here of an inappropriate austerity. That there are those for political reasons. They decide to stop eating, and they are not eating for weeks, and up until they come to the verge of leaving their bodies, just for political reasons, to get some purpose done. That so that is in the mode of ignorance. They are torturing themselves, and there is a material purpose. Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted a kingdom greater than Lord Brahma. He had a big material desire. And he did these austerities. But that was on advice of his mother initially. That his mother Shvaniti said, yes, you feel hurt by your stepmother, but nothing we can do about it. The only one who can help you is the Supreme Lord. And Dhruva Maharaj asked, where is this Supreme Lord? And his mother Suniti said, there are great sages in the forest who are doing austerities to please the Supreme Person. And they come in contact with the Lord. And therefore, Prabhava went to do these austerities to please the Lord. So that was his purpose. That, and then of course, he met Narada Muni, who tricked him, and he said, yeah, you do your austerities, but you make a deity of the Supreme Lord, you meditate on it and chant Hare Krishna. So he was doing a yogic meditation. So the yogis also, they are very austere, but their purpose is to please the Lord in this form of the super soul, or in this form of Brahman. So that are spiritual purposes, and that is different from the purposes here. Self-torture or trying to endure others. You have these tantrics, these voodoos, who by their voodoo practice, they try to harm others. These are some of the tantric practices, and that's in the mode of ignorance also. Yes, like you said, the motive, if it's not to please the Lord, that means, and it's not out of duty, then it's either in passion or in ignorance. So wrong motives are in passion or in ignorance. But the motives in ignorance, Krishna says, are two kinds: self-torture and destroy, and trying to destroy or endure others. That all the others with any other motive which is to get a benefit, that's in a mode of passion. Is that okay, Gaurav? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
So we will continue now, and we will hear about charity in the modes. That charity in the modes, and Lord Krishna will describe their different results again in 3 verses. So text 20. We go back to our screen. Datavyam iti addanam diyatenu pakarine desakale sapatrecha taddanam satvikam smitam. Charity give mode of duty without expectation of return at a proper time and place to a worthy person is considered to be in the mode of goodness. So different elements without expectation of return, proper time and place to a worthy person. We will hear before, in passion there will be an expectation of return. And it's done because it's done for fruitive results. So that is passion, and ignorance. They are giving charity, but they really don't want to give it. It's an encouraging note. But here, charity given out of duty. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes here, in the Vedic literature, charity given to a person engaged in spiritual activities is recommended. So, a worthy person is a person engaged in spiritual activity. There is no recommendation for giving charity indiscriminately. Spiritual perfection is always a consideration. Therefore, charity is recommended to be given at the place of pilgrimage and at the lunar and solar or solar eclipses, or at the end of the month, or to qualified Brahmins or Vaishnava devotee, or in temples. Such charity should be given without consideration of return. Charity to the poor is sometimes given out of compassion, but if a poor man is not worth giving charity to, then there is no spiritual advancement. In other words, indiscriminately, charity is not recommended in the Vedic literature. So it should not be just given to everyone, but to a worthy person, which Srila Prabhupada describes as those who are engaged in spiritual activities. That, of course, you can also give to beggars, but if you give to beggars, then, yeah, there may be not spiritual benefit, no spiritual benefit. But, of course, we don't know who the beggar is. But text 21. Yattu pratyupakarahtam phalamudishya vapunam yate sa parikristam tatanam rachanam smitam. So this is charity in the mode of passion. But charity performed with the expectation of some return or with a desire for fruitive results, or in the grudging mode, it is said to be charity in the mode of passion. So that can be done in different ways. That it's said in the scripture. If one gives charity to a worthy Brahmin, one gets a return of 1,000 times of something in the next life. So some do that with that idea that it's mentioned in the purport. Charity is sometimes performed for elevation of the heavenly planets. That's, yeah. Of course, we in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, we have the story of King Nrija, who became a lizard, but in his previous life he was a king and he was famous for his charity. But he made one error. Once he gave one cow to a Brahmin, but then the cow came again into the herd, and he gave it a second time to another Brahmin, but then the previous owner came and said, oh, this was my cow, and you gave it to someone else, and there was a whole thing. And finally, both Brahmins felt offended. And so by that, he became a lizard in his next life. That's interesting. But then, because he became a lizard, because he came before Yamaraj, and Yamaraj, if you have a lot of pious actions, you will go to the heavenly planets for long, very long, but you did that one thing. Do you want to have your bad activities first, and then after that your good activities? And said yes. So I became first a lizard. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport there, yeah, that was not good. He should have asked for his good activities first, and then he could have chanted. Then he could have become a devotee, and then by his devotional practice, then everything would be destroyed. Anyway, but we see that charity is sometimes a risky business for those who want to go to the heavenly planets. So it is said, charity songs performed for elevation to heavenly planets, and sometimes with great trouble and with repentance afterwards. Why I've spent this money in this way? So that's in a grudging mode. That's also in the mode of passion. Yeah, I was wrong before. That's also in the mode of passion. Charity is always sometimes given under some obligation at the request of a superior. So this kind of charity is in the mode of passion. That so Prabhupada concludes that there are many charitable foundations which offer their gifts to institutions where sense gratification goes on. Such charities are not recommended in the Vedic scripture. Only charity in the mode of goodness is recommended. So that's in the mode of goodness. 23. That's so as long, yeah. So people in passion, in other words, give charity with a wrong attitude. That's the main point. And now charity in the mode of ignorance. Adeshikali atanam apratebhya sadhyate asatketam avahyatam tattamasamudaritam. And charity performed at an impure place and at an improper time to unworthy persons or without proper attention and respect is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Yeah, improper place, unworthy persons, and to get respect and attention. That's just the opposite of the mode of goodness. But, contributions for indulgence in intoxication and gambling are not encouraged here. That sort of contribution is in a mode of ignorance. So charity is not beneficial. That's 22. But now, after having explained sacrifices in the mode, austerities in the mode, charity in the mode, now Lord Krishna is going to make a very important point at the end of this chapter. Yes, Mother Rukmini.
Yes, Maharaj, can we get, Maharaj, can we give devotees, okay, need to think it before we that, or if you want to give, or question is, Maharaj, is it okay to give everybody Mahaprasad without thinking? Two things, gifts, Mahaprasad, devotees,
Well, we couldn't hear you. It's broken up. And I heard a few words, Mahaprasad, but further I can't make anything of it. Can you repeat it again? I hope the connection gets better.
audible now?
That's better, yeah. Oh. Okay. Seems.
Maharaj, am I audible?
Yes, sure. That's better.
Oh, yes. Maharaj, I'm saying that I'd like to give Maharaj gifts today. Should we think for giving? Or second question, is it to give Mahaprasad to anybody, or do we need to think anything?
So is it okay to give Mahaprasad to anybody? Well, it depends that they wanted to give Mahaprasad to some rock star, not going to mention his name, but he spit on it. That was not good. So you have to be careful. There should be at least some respect. That some respect should be there. If they are going to disrespect the Mahaprasad, it's like disrespecting Krishna. So we have to be careful to be sure they are a little pious and they will accept it. Otherwise, we cause them to make offenses and then they are further away from taking up spiritual life. Is that okay?
And Maharaj, if somebody asks for Lakshmi, devotee asks for Lakshmi, is it okay to give, to help little Lakshmi?
Well,
If somebody needs.
well, it depends on the circumstance. That if they are really in need of it, because if we speak about devotee, yeah, you have different kinds of devotees, beginners, new bhaktas, and those who are practicing for some time. So we have to discriminate between that.
From some time, Maharaj.
Yeah. So you must see what's their position in Krishna consciousness. If they are sincere and you are sure they will use that money well in Krishna's service, yes, why not? Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Text 23. Krishna brings it now to a conclusion, and he starts with making a very important point. Om Tat Sat iti nirdesha brahmanastre vidasmita brahmanastre navedasha shakya savita pura. From the beginning of creation, these three words, Om Tat Sat, were used to indicate the supreme absolute truth. These three symbolic representations were used by the Brahmins while chanting the hymns of the Vedas and during the sacrifices for the satisfaction of the Supreme. So, as long as these sacrifice, austerity, and charity, when they are performed in the modes of nature, then they are materially contaminated. So these words Om Tat Sat in the Vedic hymns indicate that one must act, one's act must satisfy the Supreme Lord to qualify as spiritual. So when someone chants Om Tat Sat along with the performance of sacrifice, charity, and austerity, it removes the discrepancies or the errors in these activities, and it ensures that the consciousness of all participants is elevated. So we have heard before penance, sacrifice, charity. They were divided into three categories. That when they are aimed to please the Supreme Lord, Om Tat Sat, then because they are aimed to please the Eternal, they become a means for spiritual elevation. So Om Tat Sat indicates the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one who acts without following the regulation of the scriptures will not obtain the absolute truth. He will get a temporary result. and that result ends at the end of life. So the conclusion is that performance of sacrifice, austerity, penance must be done in the mode of goodness. So Bhagavad Gita recommends all work should be done for Om Tat Svat Sat, pleasing to Supreme Lord. When one performs sacrifice, sacrifice, austerity, and charity, with these three words, he acts in Krishna consciousness. So Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada concludes, is a scientific execution of transcendental activities which enables one to return home, back to Godhead. So now in text 24, the Lord will speak on Om, and then 25 Tat, and then he will speak about Sat in the next verse. That then the conclusion will be there that everything not done for Om Tat Sat is useless in this life and the next. So first about Om. Om is an address of the Supreme Lord, an impersonal address. Therefore, the impersonalists, they are chanting Om mostly. Therefore, Tasmatot Om Ityudaritya Chakyadanatapakayam Vartante Vidanoktam Satatam Brahmavadinam. Therefore, transcendentalists undertaking performances of sacrifice, charity, and penance in accordance with scriptural regulations begin always with Om to attain the Supreme. So the performance of everything on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead assures perfection of all activity. And then, so Om indicates that one aspires to reach the Supreme. And then you have Tat. Tat ityanabi sandaya phalam jagatapakaya danam danakaya savivida kayante moksha kangshipi. It's here. Without desired fruitive results, one should perform various kinds of sacrifices, penance, and austerity with the word Tat. The purpose of such transcendental activities is to get free from material entanglement. So Tat indicates the desire to get free from material entanglement. That's Tat. And purport. To be elevated to the spiritual position, one should not act for any material gain. Act should be performed for the ultimate gain of being transferred to the spiritual kingdom, back to Godhead, back home, back to Godhead. And now the Sat. Sat. Sat bhave sadhu bhave cha. Sat cheta. Sat ityeta prayuchate. Pashasti karmani tata shakshabda pajuyate chakhe tapsidane chastiti sat iti sotyate karmacheva tadaktiyam sat ityeva vidiyate. So the absolute truth is the objective of devotional service, and it is indicated by the word Sat. The performer of such sacrifice, also called Sat, as are all works of sacrifice, permanence, penance, and charity, which due to the absolute nature are performed to please the Supreme Lord or Son of Pritha. So the objective is Sat. Sat. And Sat indicates that one must act for Krishna consciousness or Sattva, in the association of sadhus was satam, of pure. That so acting in Krishna consciousness is called sattva here. And one who is fully conscious of the activities of Krishna consciousness is called a sadhu. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 3.25.25, it is said that the transcendental subject matter becomes clear in association of the devotees. The word used is satam prasangam. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavantrit karna sayana kata tatyosna tabavarga varga vartmani shadarati bhaktya anukramishati. One should discuss the very powerful pastimes of Krishna in association of the satam, the pure devotees, satam. And then by hearing to the ears, it goes to the heart and is there relished. And then one is on the path of self-realization, and then one's faith will turn into attraction to Krishna, and one is on the path of liberation here. So satam, pure devotees, good association. So Krishna draws it to a conclusion. Ashadaya utam datam tapastaptam kitam sayats asatityuchate parta nasatat pretyanoya. Anyone done a sacrifice, charity, and penance without faith in the supreme ocean of Prita is impermanent. It is called asat, and is useless both in this life and the next. So anything done without transcendental objective, whether it be sacrifice, charity, or penance, is useless, Srila Prabhupada writes. In the pursuit of all Vedic instructions, the ultimate goal is understanding Krishna. No one can obtain success without following this principle. If one, by the association of pure devotees, takes directly to Krishna consciousness, that's the best way. And that is recommended in this chapter. To achieve success in this way, one must find a proper spiritual master and receive training under his directions. Then one can achieve faith in the Supreme, and when that faith matures, in course of time, it's called love of God. This love of God is the ultimate goal of all living entities. One should therefore take to Krishna consciousness directly. But everything done which is not to please the Supreme Lord is impermanent and useless. It should be at least a transcendental objective. But in the purport of the answer of Prabhupada says, yes, do not take the gradual process. Take the direct path of Krishna consciousness and take the guidance of a spiritual master. That's the direct path. And then one can achieve love of God. So, yeah, of course, what we heard different. We could discuss that so if we are known as mostly our temples are known as charities, are registered as charities. Charity usually means feeding the hungry, going against poverty, helping the homeless, the disabled, doing cancer research, and so on. But here we have a spiritual objective, and we should not forget that spiritual objective. like in the temple in Vrindavan, in the afternoon they serve khichdi. But first there is the chanting together of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we should not forget this spiritual objective. That's, yes. That's also the Vedas teach mostly this shadow path of first elevation to goodness by performing activities in goodness. But Krishna says here, he recommends you take direct to devotional service. That the objective is Tat Sat, pleasing the Supreme Lord. That's the best charity. The best charity we can give in Krishna consciousness. Now, I end with a few references that we go here. Contents. Bhagavad Gita. So, Tadati pradihrinanti guyamakyati pritchati bhunkte bhujyate shivasat vidam priti lakshigram. Offering gifts in charity and accepting charitable gifts. Revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad and offering prasad are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee to another. So that's all charity. But it's important that this is done between devotees, but even between devotees, we cannot do that without discrimination. That because in the next verse, Srila Prabhupada writes, in order to that's the first line of the purport, in order to intelligently apply the 6-fold loving reciprocations mentioned in the previous verse, one must select proper persons with careful discrimination. That Srila Rupa Goswami therefore advises that we should meet with the Vaishnavas in an appropriate way according to their particular status. In this verse, it tells us how to deal with 3 types of devotees: Kanishthadikar, the beginner, the Madhyamadikar, who is halfway, and the Uttamadikar, who has reached perfection. So, Srila Prabhupada says here to give charity, even between devotees, you must know who is advanced and who is not advanced. Or like the charity to revealing one's mind. One does not reveal one's mind to a beginner. One reveals one's mind to one who is superior or equal. So that these points are also there in Nectar of Instruction, that we must know, even between devotees who is advanced and not advanced, that and there's also etiquette, that so many points to learn. So we will stop here. Now the time is, let's see, it's 13 past 8. That let's assume at 8:25. 25, that's in 11 minutes. And then we will start discussing the first verses of chapter 18. So see you soon. So the materialistic way of pious activities like charity is recommended in the Smriti Shastras, as quoted by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Money given in charity to a suitable person is guaranteed bank balance in life. Such charity is recommended to be given to a Brahmin. If the money is given in charity to a non-Brahmin without Brahminical qualification, the money is returned in the next life in the same proportion. If it is given in charity to a half-educated Brahmin, even, then the money is returned double. If the money is given in charity to a learned and fully qualified Brahmin, the money is returned 100 and 1,000 times. And if the money is given to a Veda Paraga, one who has factually realized the power of the Vedas, it is returned by unlimited multiplication. The ultimate end of Vedic knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Vedasa Sarvayameva Vidya. There is a guarantee of monies being returned if given in charity regardless of the proportion. Similarly, a moment passed in the association of a pure devotee by hearing and chanting the transcendental messages of the Lord is the perfect guarantee for eternal life, for returning home back to Godhead. Madhama Gatva Punarjanma Navidyate. In other words, a devotee of the Lord is guaranteed eternal life. A devotee's old age and disease in the present life is but an impetus to such guaranteed eternal life. So that's about charity. Now we will start with chapter 18. So we are starting with chapter 18. Factually, the Bhagavad Gita ends at 17th chapter at the end. At the end, yeah. But Krishna gives a summary again in the 18th chapter. And this summary will naturally conclude that one should practice devotional service. In the second chapter already, in the first 6 chapters of the Gita were mainly about Karma Yoga. And all these chapters are summarized now in the first 12 verses of chapter 18, which we will discuss now. And then in the next chapter, the next section from 13 till 25 and so on, there the jnana section is repeated. That we will hear again about the modes and so on. But then afterwards, Krishna is going to conclude the Gita and will give us 3 levels of confidential knowledge. And the highest is surrender to Krishna. Man bhav mat bhakto. Think of Krishna. Become his devotee. So first, we will now look at the first 12 verses that and verse 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Arjuna Vacha Sanyasyasya Mahabhavo Tattvamichami Veditum Tyagasya Sarishkesha Pritaktesha Nishudana So Arjuna said, O mighty armed, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, tyag, and the renounced order of life, sannyas, or killing of the Kesha demon, master of the senses. So tyag and sannyas. What is tyag? What is sannyas? Lord Krishna will explain that in the next verse. That in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that in every chapter, Lord Krishna stresses that devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. The same point is summarized in the 18th chapter as the most confidential point of knowledge. In the first 6 chapters, stress was given to devotional service. Yoginam api sarvasham. That, yes, that's the end of chapter 6. Yoginam api sarvasham mathinantrātsmana pachnam bhajate yomam nami yuktatamo mata. Yogi is one who is united in love with me within the heart. That's the highest yogi. So that's devotional service. And then Bhaktam Charatapasam Sarvalokam Suridam Sarvucham Bhaktamam something Richyati. Krishna says, I'm Vices, I'm proprietor of all planets and one, in the front of all living entities. One who knows is attains peace. So it's concluded at the end of every chapter. And also we heard at the end of the 17th chapter, Om Tat Sat, the same conclusion. It should be done to please the Supreme Lord. So, and Srila Prabhupada writes in the Prabhupada about the Brahma Sutra or the Vedanta Sutra, that because Vedanta Sutra is 4 books. And the first book is factually about Sambandha, understanding who we are, Aham Brahmasmi, and who Krishna is, and what our relationship is. And the second and the third book of the Vedanta Sutra is about Abhideya, how to act in that relationship. And the fourth book is Prayojan, the goal, love of Krishna. So Arjuna wants to clarify the 2 distinct subject matter of Bhagavad Gita, namely renunciation, tyag, and renounced order of life, sannyas. Thus he's asking the meaning of these 2 words. So in previous chapters, the purpose of life was indicated to be renunciation and attainment of a transcendental position above the 3 modes. Arjuna wants to clarify this matter, and he wants to know what's this renunciation, tyag, and what is sannyas, the renounced order of life. And Lord Krishna replies in text 2. He said, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Kamyanam Karmanam Nyasam Sanyasam Kavayo Vidusa Sarva Karma Phalatyakam Parushtyasam Vishaksana. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men know. All called the renounced order of life, and giving up the results of activities is what wise men call renunciation or tyag. So you have sannyas, giving up activities based on material desires. That's one thing. When But tyag means giving up the fruits of action. It's a different thing. Because we should not renounce what leads to spiritual advancement. Everything belongs to Krishna and can be used in his service. So it's not that we say we are renounced. I don't want this. No, I want this to be used to use it in the service of Krishna. And we will hear in Nectar of Devotion that's perfect renunciation. Understanding to that we don't have attachment to things in this world, but we know they belong to Krishna, and therefore we want to use them in Krishna's service. And that's perfect renunciation, that knowing that Krishna is the owner. And therefore we should use everything in the service of Krishna. And so acting, this tyag means that one is giving up the results of one's activities. I give the results to Krishna. And that is what devotional service is. So the tyag is better than sannyas. Sannyas means giving up the material desires. Material desires. I don't want to do things for myself. But just giving up things is not spiritual life, just renunciation. Real renunciation, real sannyas means performing this tyag, that one uses things in the service of Krishna. That Srila Prabhupada speaks about that also in the purport. The performance of activities for results have to be given up. That is what Bhagavad Gita says. But activities leading to advanced spiritual knowledge are not to be given up. So sacrifices prompted by desires should be stopped. But sacrifices for the purification of one's heart, for advancement in spiritual science, should not be given up. So there should be discrimination. So we have these two definitions: sannyas, giving up activities based on material desire. So we want to get rid of our desires. So unless the heart is pure from these material desires, one cannot take sannyas. Therefore, to take sannyas, one must be practically free from these material desires. Otherwise, Krishna says it will be troublesome. But tyag is better. To perform tyag, the heart must not be pure yet. Tyag means giving up the results of one activities and giving it to Krishna. And by performing this tyag, you also become purified. But one should desire to purify one's heart. That desire is not to be given up. Good. Text 3. Jayam dosavadityeke karma prarora manishina chakadana tapakarma nachakam iti chapare. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitful activities should be given up as faulty. And other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. Yes, sacrifices, austerity, charity should never be given up if they can elevate us in Krishna consciousness. Text 4. Yeah, but the verse 3 says here that there are two kinds. They say that some sages say that all fruitive activities should be given up. Yes. While others say that sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be given us. That because sacrifice, charity, and penance helps us to progress. If it helps us to progress spiritually, it's very beneficial. So, see further. Gaurav, probably, yes. You want to say something, please?
I just want to ask, is these two things are totally opposite? I think both are in line.
I can't understand you. Can maybe.
Yes, is it audible now, Maharaj?
That's better.
Yeah, so Maharaj, I was asking, these two things seems to be in line. Like some are telling to give up the fruitive activities and others are telling us sacrifice, charity and penance. Like these two things are not in a opposite, that I can't understand why these two things are opposite.
Okay, that's the some men declare all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as fully. So that's not opposite. Fruitive activities based on material desires that and that should be given up. That's true. That's one part that can bring you to liberation, but not to self-realization. And that giving up will not purify your heart. To give it up, you have to purify your heart. Otherwise, you are a pretender, Krishna says. And yet other sages say that sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. So there are different opinions among the sages, but they are both correct. But the sacrifice, charity, and penance, if they help us to make spiritual advancement, then they are very good. So sacrifice or austerity, we learned. Austerity means giving up sense gratification. So if we give up sense gratification, means we are giving up fruitive activities. That's good. And that's the way to purify the heart if we do it for Krishna. So it should never be given up. Of course, Srila Prabhupada writes a purport here, and that gives another view on it. There are many activities in Vedic literature which are subject of contention. For instance, it is said that an animal can be killed in a sacrifice, yet some maintain that animal killing is completely abominable. Although animal killing in a sacrifice is recommended in the Vedic literature, the animal is considered to be killed. The sacrifice is not considered to be killed. The sacrifice is to give a new life to the animal. Sometimes the animal is given a new animal life after being killed in the sacrifice, and sometimes the animal is promoted immediately to the human form of life. But there are different opinions among the sages. Some say animal killing should be avoided, and others say that for a specific sacrifice it is good. All these different opinions on sacrificial activity are now being clarified by the Lord himself. So we will hear Krishna's opinion now. Yes, Gaurav. Okay. So we will hear now Krishna's opinion in text 4, that and He says, Nisyam Shinameta Tra Tyagi Bharata Satama Tyagoi Purusha Vyagra Trivida Samprakirtita. The best of the Bharats, now hear my judgment about renunciation, O tiger among men. Renunciation is declared in the scriptures of 3 kinds. So now he will explain this renunciation that, yeah. This is text 4. And we will hear now text 5, that and that's Krishna's opinion. Chakya dana tapakarma natyakam karma nevatat. Chakya danam tapashiva pavanani manishinam. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So that's the point. The sacrifices, charity, and penance, as explained in the previous chapter, if done for Om Tat Sat, it will purify the great souls, even the great souls. So that's the way to become purified. What Krishna says. That, of course, we are speaking here about karma yoga, but as usual, Srila Prabhupada, especially in his purport, like he did in the first 6 chapters, he equates karma yoga practically with Krishna consciousness. Because in its perfection, it is Krishna consciousness. Because we have heard in the 2nd chapter, one must do one's duty without being attached to the results. So so one does one's duty, no attachment to the result in the Varnashram system. That's the beginning of karma yoga. But then Krishna further explains that yat karos yat tasnas yat yos dadas yat tapasyas tukantya tat karishmamat arpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you give away, whatever charity you do it as a sacrifice for me. It says also, perform all sacrifices as an offering to me. So that's the next step. You do your work, not out of duty but you do your work and you give the result to Krishna. That's a higher level of karma yoga. And then a more higher level is, you do the activity, that is yat karos yat asnas, you do the activity itself for Krishna. And you give also the result to Krishna. And a higher level of karma yoga, when it becomes bhakti yoga, is you do the activity out of love for Krishna. And you offer the result out of love for Krishna. So that these are 4 different levels. It's all, and the first 3 is all karma yoga. And the 4th level is bhakti yoga. So that's how karma yoga leads to bhakti yoga. And Lord Krishna also refers to that here in this summary. He says, yes, they must be performed, that these activities, but it can be done on either of these levels. And even on the lowest level, if you just do it out of duty, it will purify you. So, because many of these impersonalists, they don't accept Krishna as a supreme. So they accept Brahman, that they are Brahman, and they do it out of duty. And that's also purifying them. It will not bring them to the perfection, but will help to purify them. and put a step further. And Krishna wants also to encourage them. That's also this. Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita to different levels of transcendentalists, and each of them he wants to encourage them. That so that is what we are hearing here, and then yeah. So Krishna gives here his opinion. That's interesting. That Krishna gives this opinion. It should not be given up, this sacrifice, charity, and penance, even by renounced persons, he says, should not be given up. Because Krishna's opinion is the absolute truth. Text 6. Yes, Mother Rukmini.
Maharaj, why particular, why particular talking about the great souls? Any example that how sacrifice and penance help great souls?
Great souls. Yeah, great souls are described in the Bhagavad Gita. Mahatmanam tumam parta devim prakati ashrita. These are great souls, Mahatmas, who are taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. And these Mahatmas, they perform Satatam Kirtayantamam Yatantasha Prita Vrataha. They always, with great determination, chant. Then Krishna in 9.15 spoke about others who are engaged in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without the second, and as diverse in many and in the universal form. So in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada said, these are not exactly Mahatmas. They are not yet on the position of Mahatma, but they worship Krishna in a different way, and they are also great souls. So for such great souls, they will also become purified. Does that help? Thank you.
Yes,
Good.
Maharaj, yes.
Okay. That's 6. And then we go to 7. Niyatasya tu sannyasa karmana no papachyate moatasya pritchagas tamasa parikirtita. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives up his prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So one must follow the prescribed duties in the Varnashram here, that not give them up. Krishna spoke about that never give up your prescribed duties, and do your own duty, not the duty of others. Act according to your own psychophysical nature, not try to imitate others, because that's dangerous, Krishna said. So that was text 7, yeah. And Srila Prabhupada explains this also in the purport. Work for material satisfaction must be given up, but activities which promote one to spiritual activities like cooking for the Supreme, offering the food to the Lord, and then accepting the food are recommended. It is said that the person in the renounced order of light should not cook for himself, but cooking for oneself is prohibited, but cooking for the Supreme Lord is not prohibited. Similarly, a sannyasi may perform a marriage ceremony to help his disciple in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. If one renounces such activities, it is understood that he's acting in a mode of darkness, because In the rigid Vedic culture, this was not accepted. And sannyasi would perform a marriage ceremony. But how do we justify such activities? What President Srila Prabhupada said, that, well, he did what was needed. His disciples had to be married, and he did the needful for the mission, for Srila Prabhupada's, for Lord Chaitanya's mission. What was best? So that's Yukta Vairagya, real renunciation. Text 8. Dukam itye vayat karma kaya klesha vayat jayat sakritva rachasam tyagam naiva tyagam phalam labet. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. So purport: one who is in Krishna consciousness should not give up earning money out of fear that he is performing fruitive activities. If by working one can engage his money in Krishna consciousness, or if by rising early in the morning one can advance his transcendental Krishna consciousness, one should not desist out of fear or because such activities are considered troublesome. That's in the mode of passion. Then you have the mode of ignorance. Mode of action never leads to renunciation. Let's see. Karma nityedayat karma niyatam kriyate kriyataryana sangantyat favlam chevanat satyaga satviko mata. Arjuna, one who performs prescribed duties only because it ought to be done, and renounces all material association and all attachment to fruit. This renunciation is in the mode of goodness. So the mode of goodness. Prescribed duties must be performed with this mentality. One should act without attachment for the result. It should be dissociated from the modes of work. Of course, one acts without attachment to the results, but better is acting with attachment for Krishna. Do it for Krishna. So a man working in Krishna consciousness in a factory does not associate himself with the work of the factory, nor with the workers of the factory. He simply works for Krishna. And when he gives up the result, for Krishna, he's acting transcendentally. So we go to work, and internally we work for Krishna. And we get a salary. We use it to buy bhoga and flowers for the deities, and we worship Krishna. That we turn our house in a temple. We work for the house, but it's a temple. We work for our family, but it are devotees. So by that, it becomes transcendental. Text 10. Natvesta kusalam karma kusalena nuchayate tyage sattva samavishto medavid shina samsaya. The intelligent renouncers situated in the mode of goodness, neither hateful or of inauspicious work, nor attached to auspicious work, has no doubts about work. This text 10. First line of the purport: a person in Krishna consciousness or in the mode of goodness does not hate anyone or anything which troubles his body. That's a high level. And now we will hear about real renunciation. Naideva brita sakyam tyaktam karmana sheshata Yatu karma phalatyahi nasit nyatyahit abhidiyate. It is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities, but here who renounces the fruits of action is called one who has truly renounced. So that's the tyag, renouncing the fruits of action. So that the tyag is better than sannyas. That sannyas, activities based on material desires, give them up. That's sannyas. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that one can never give up work at any time. Therefore, he who works for Krishna does not enjoy the fruit results, who offers everything to Krishna and is a real renouncer. So that we will hear also in Nectar of Devotion, Anyabilasa Sunyam Jnana Karmatanavtam Anukulena Krishna Nushilnam Bhakti Uttama. So one who acts for the pleasure of Krishna without any ulterior motive, understanding that everything belongs to Krishna and is therefore to be offered to him. That's real renunciation that gives the fruits to Krishna. Text 12, the last verse. Anishtam ishtam ishram cha trividam karmana phalam bhagavat atyahinam pretya natu sannyasinam kvachit. For one who is not renounced the threefold fruits of action, the desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death. But for those who are in the renounced order of life, they have no such result to suffer or enjoy. So a person acting in Krishna, acting in knowledge of his relationship with Krishna is always liberated. Therefore, he has not to enjoy, to suffer the results of his acts after death. Therefore, acts in his knowledge of his relationship with Krishna. That is Krishna consciousness. We live in a relationship with Krishna, even in this world. And unless we do that, we give the results to Krishna, we get reactions. So it is a comment on verse 3. I go back to verse 3. Some learned men declared all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as faulty, and other sages maintained the acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance that they should never be abundant. There's a comment on that verse by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that those who say that fruitive activities should be given up are the followers of the Sankhya philosophy, the Jnanis. In the second part, the Karma Mimamsa position is given, because sacrifice, charity, and penance are prescribed in the Vedas. They should not be considered faulty. So in the first part, those who say that the sages will say that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up, that these are the Jnanis. They study Vedanta and want to understand the difference between matter and spirit, and they want to renounce everything in this world and give it up and come to just absorbed in Brahman. So that's the first part. These are the Jnanis, the followers of Sankaracharya. And the second part are the Karma Mimamsas. The Karma Mimamsas, they say there is only karma in this world. you cannot be liberated. Eternally we stay in karma. And therefore you must perform pious activities so that so that in next life you get a better position, go to heaven or whatever. But you can only do that when you perform sacrifice, charity, and penance. So they say yes. That should not be given up. How else are we going to go to heaven? So there are different kinds of sages with different philosophies, but neither of them is concerned with devotional service. So these are lower levels of sages who are considering these things. So there are different things for us to learn in these verses. What is our attitude towards money with earning our livelihood? And what's our attitude towards our work? That's all explained here in these verses. That sannyasis and marriage, conducting marriage ceremonies, So everything that leads to Krishna consciousness should be encouraged. Like this verse number 3 here, the different opinions in the scriptures and how to understand these different opinions in scripture. It's important to understand them correctly. And then, the conclusion was text 10. Well, in text 10, we heard, intelligent renounces situated in mode of goodness, neither hateful or auspicious work, nor attached to of inauspicious work, not attached to auspicious work, has no doubts about work. So we should not be bewildered by this auspicious and inauspicious work. We do everything for Krishna. We should have no doubts about work. Follow Krishna's instructions, and there will be no reactions. So that was the summary of the Jnana section, of the Karma section, and tomorrow we will hear Jnana Yoga again, the summary. Mother Rukmini, your hand is still up. You have another question?
No, much. No.
Okay.
I have
yes.
a question.
Yes, please.
I want to ask, Prabhupada is not telling the first 6 chapters as karma yoga. He is telling them as devotional service, and the next 6 verses, 6 chapters, as pure devotional service. So means why, like karma yoga, he is telling us devotional service.
Yeah, that we learned in the first 6 chapters of the Gita. They are generally about karma yoga, but Srila Prabhupada equates it with bhakti yoga. He encourages us to practice it on the highest level. On the highest level, karma yoga becomes bhakti yoga, as I have explained. The lowest level, we act out of duty. The next level, we give the result to Krishna. The next level, we do our work for Krishna, and we give the result to Krishna. On the next level, we are doing our work with devotion and offer the result with devotion to Krishna. Then it becomes devotional service and is bhakti. That's how how Karma Yoga leads to Bhakti. You have devotional service. Devotional is the internal and the service is external. In the beginning, we do only the external and the internal is not yet there, but it helps us to purify, and gradually the internal will come. And finally, we will do the work for Krishna and do it finally with love for Krishna, as the heart becomes purified. Because without a purified heart, you cannot give your love to Krishna, because there is no love in the heart. There's only contamination in the heart. Therefore, these gradations are there. But Srila Prabhupada says, yeah, practice immediately on the highest level under the guidance of a spiritual master and follow his instructions. And by that way, we get the mercy of Krishna. And Krishna will accept your service, even if it's without love. Because you on the condition you follow the Vaidisana Bhakti, the rules and regulations given to you by the spiritual master. If you follow the spiritual master's instructions, Krishna accepted as love. And then Dadami Buddhyoram Tam is purifying our heart. He accepted as love. And that's what Krishna, therefore Srila Prabhupada in the first 6 chapters, he equates Karma Yoga with devotional service. So he's telling us, don't be bewildered, go straight for the highest, at the direct path. Don't take the indirect path. So that's because the lowest level is on the Varnashram system. But there is no Varnashram system. So we go to Bhakti. Varnashram is to be developed, because many cannot come to that highest level. That is, they can do practice devotional service for some time, but because the attraction to the material energy is too great, many fall back. Therefore, we need to develop Varnashram also. But in the beginning, that was not a priority. First, establish Krishna consciousness all over the world and get everything to Bhakti. Yeah. Also, another reason why Srila Prabhupada does that is that many editions of Bhagavad Gita, they are written by impersonalists or by yogis and so on. And their purpose is not straightforward. They misinterpret Bhagavad Gita. And they have established that this system of Karma Yoga, that without referring it to Bhakti. And that's not good, because Karma Yoga is meant as one of the staircases to bring one to Bhakti. But they don't make the connection. So Srila Prabhupada makes the connection. So everything he writes is 100% correct. That's the purpose of the Gita, to bring us to Bhakti. But the verses are written in such a way that Krishna also wants to encourage the impersonalists. That's Krishna. He wants to encourage everyone, even those who do not direct accept him as the Supreme Personality of God. Does that help? Good. Okay, something else? Good. Then we continue tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Jai Prabhupada.